Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Huddle Within podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. Guys, we've got a lot of shit to talk about. I'll be honest. I know we have another podcast since the World Cup preview where we had Matt and Nathan coming in and giving us our sort of takes as we all tried to find out who's going in our groups. And we're at the point where at the time of this recording, second games have all been done and we're going into the third games now, which will be obviously previewing definitely the Socceroos, and obviously, talking about slightly the things that happened in that World Cup group, and also, what to expect for the next round as well, and knockouts too. But you can also tell, in the midst of everything, the Wizards also drafted AJ Dybantsa. So I'll probably spend a few minutes talking about them. We obviously know the Knicks were NBA champions, so congratulations to them. TJ and Kenny, I was meant to get a podcast with them last week to discuss all things New York Knicks and celebrations and getting them on to talk all things Knicks, but we haven't aligned with a time. And quite frankly, it's on their side also been busy and my side too. I've been relentlessly working at fanzone.au, doing the World Cup there. So just, the event managing, the tickets and whatnot. So guys, I've been honestly for all the Colombian, Brazil, Australian, England games, I've been there waking up at like 3, 4 a.m. and doing that on top of my full-time job, on top of obviously my soccer as well, which is 3 times a week. It's been really hard to come in and get podcast and content out in general, even for Zero Ballers. So I do apologize for that. I've obviously addressed that on my Instagram as well. So that's sort of why it's been a bit quiet in that front. But I'm back today and, it's not going to be more sporting news per se, but I want to get on a podcast. I want to talk things World Cup. I don't have guests today, so I'm going to be talking by myself. But, World Cup, Wizards, we'll get it out the way. We'll get it done today. So then you guys can have some content going into week 3. And look, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm super proud of myself for, talking about Cape Verde, how I did. They have an opportunity to finish third, their final game against Saudi Arabia. The goalkeeper got a shit ton of followers. He's hitting like 15 mil now. It's more than Tom Brady, which is crazy. He's a 40-year-old goalkeeper from Cape Verde, but I'm proud of them. They drew with Uruguay 2-2. They drew with Spain 0-0. You would never have expected that, but they managed to do that. And, they have a big opportunity to get to the next phase. And I'm super glad that I was able to sort of, predict that as well. And then Egypt on the other side, which concerns me if they do top the group, which I did predict, and Australia finished second, we're probably going to verse Belgium. So, be it as it will, but that's a cause for concern too there. But, Egypt are doing really well. Portugal, Ronaldo scored 2 goals. He was obviously seen as washed because literally the greatest of all time is scoring for fun. He's had 5 goals in 2 games, which is just insane to do at that age. It's inspiring what Messi's been doing, honestly. It's simply incredible. Like, the fact that he's had 5 goals in 2 games. Against some pretty decent opposition as well. I would call Algeria an African powerhouse. They got to a semi-final of a Cup of Nations. And Austria are a pretty solid team in Europe. Be it they haven't been to the World Cup in a long time. They still have some really good players. So, 5 goals in 2 games, incredible. Mbappe and Haaland are just causing havoc in that group of death, I would say, and poor Iraq, because they've got literally no chance here. But those guys are going to take on each other, and I think that's going to be the game of the round. Obviously, you've got Spain and Uruguay too, which will be exciting. Portugal, Colombia as well. They all determine who's going to top the group. So that's, super, super exciting. I think Uruguay really need to get a point there because, you know what? If Cape Verde somehow win against Saudi Arabia, they might not even finish third. They might finish second. And if they finish second, that's just simply incredible. But I don't know what's going to happen with that game. I got excited with the Cape Verde take, but it's coming into fruition. And man, I'm just inspired by them. Like, they're just such a really good team, like very strong team in Africa. They, like I mentioned in the last pod, they qualified legitly. And if they had the old format, they would have qualified regardless because they topped the African group. And in that is just shows why they are where they are. But Spain and Uruguay, we'll see who tops the group there. Spain are looking obviously the more favorable of the two. But Uruguay, losing can really put them at the back four. And, on 2 points, I don't know if that's good enough to get you out of the group, even if you finish third. So that's something to look out for as well. As I mentioned, you've got Belgium and New Zealand. Belgium will look to try to go third. Iran will look to try upset Egypt, who are trying to go first as well. So lots of storylines there. England have just come off a shit draw against Ghana. To be fair, Ghana defended that low block very well, and they were really, really compact, and they executed the game plan perfectly. So I can't really hate on them. It just gives me a bit of concern for England and where they're going in terms of just their football. I don't think it was good enough on the day. And, that gives me a bit of concerns for them. But I think they'll be able to sort of edge out defeating Panama with ease. You'd like to think. Croatia edge out there. So yeah, a lot of good things happening in the World Cup. As I mentioned, the race for the Golden Boot is ever so close. And yeah, it's just so good to have the World Cup back. America's done a pretty decent job, to be fair. The whole of North America, I would say. So yeah, we're really keen to sort of see how that goes on. Probably we'll get a knockout breakdown, try to get Nathan Matt back on the pod to discuss those things, and see where we're at when the round of 32 comes. And I'm getting to it. Australia, obviously against the United States. We did lose 2-0. I'm wearing my Socceroos jersey with pride, and, I'm proud of the boys, but let's be honest here. And you guys have probably seen it all everywhere on social media by now, that the decision to drop Irukunda and Connor Metcalf obviously bit us in the ass. We did not start the half good. We weren't able to retain possession. We weren't able to look threatening whatsoever. And it looked as though we were trying to hold a lead for them to come on at halftime and make an impact. Now, where I see the sort of point there, it annoys me because I think Popovic was really trying to be too cute there. If you wanted to drop Irukunda, I would honestly say, fair enough, okay, give him a half to sort of make an impact. But to add Connor Metcalf on top of that, who not only was the guy that obviously scored for us and made it 2-0, he is one of our most technical players. And, he's really good on the ball. So I didn't see the logic of dropping one of the only midfielders that were able to keep the ball in our team. So that really put us on the back foot. And as soon as they came on, along with Volpato, who, old Volpato was someone that I thought maybe wouldn't play because of the fact that, he was fighting between being Italian and Australian, gets on the pitch and just shows how good he is and the reason why he's playing Serie A. And probably the reason why I should start next week, because he had an unbelievable second half. And, we performed pretty well in the second half. And, I put that reel up. Shout out to you guys for obviously blowing that up with the views as well. It started good, obviously saying we're going to top the group, and, had all the Aussies calling me a time travel and everything. And then obviously Turkey fans weren't happy and didn't really have much to say. I reached out to them. But then it got to the US, and the USA, I've got a bone to pick with you guys, and you're about to hear my shit right now. And normally I don't get salty where I lose. It's just funny how everyone started commenting after we won, and, all the trash that all you USA fans are talking. Half of yous before 2 weeks didn't even know what football meant. You would have thought it's American football, but you guys refer to it as soccer. So do we, but we actually know what the sport is. Anyways, funny thing is, you guys literally copped an own goal or scored an own goal, and that second goal arguably offside. You had 2 shots on target. You're playing at home. You have players that are playing in higher levels than us, and you guys coming out to me on the comments. Fair enough. I'll take banter all day. Like, I actually find it funny that they come in. To think that it was embarrassing and we played bad is hilarious. You guys were actually shit. And I know you guys deep down who are commenting on those reels are people that generally think that USA can be a powerhouse and win the World Cup. You've got no fucking chance. You've got no fucking chance of winning the World Cup. Mind you had 2 shots on target against a Socceroos side that didn't have their 2 goal scorers on the pitch. That is our fault. We'll take that. No excuse. The ref, I don't know how much you guys are paying him. I don't know if you were threatening him with some corruption or whatnot, but he had a bloody stinker. Your Captain America, LeBron James of soccer, thought it was basketball with that handball. It was a blatant handball. Just simply lucky to not cop a penalty and stuff. And you guys you didn't look good. You didn't play good at all. It's not like you dominated us and played out the park. You guys were shit. We just happened to be worse, which is fine. We're not a better team than US. I'm not sitting here to tell you guys that we're a better team than US. No way. You guys beat us fair and square. Square, I wouldn't say entirely fair, but in the end, you got the result. You got the 3 points. You're probably going to top the group, whatever. But to think that you guys are good enough and think that you're that good is a scam. You're scamming yourself because you're shit. Your team's not that good. Your fans are shit. You guys are arrogant and you don't even know the sport. So it's just funny seeing all the Americans. And you know what? Good on yous. Came out after a week and a half of when I posted that to come in and just talk your shit. And you know what? I hope Tokyo give you the business. I doubt they will, but if they do, it would be quite hilarious. And if we do beat Paraguay, I'm hoping we can top the group. But, we're not done. Remember, we have a chance to finish second, and we got Paraguay in 2 days. And I'm extremely excited for the game. The keys to the game is very obvious. You play Iracunda, you play Volpato, you play Metcalf, and you play Toure. And you give Toure a bit more time, and you don't keep him isolated up there by himself. You give him opportunities to sort of, bounce the ball to some other players that can create and stuff for him. So that's how I'm going with the game. I think you push Metcalf back into that midfield position. I know Ocon's been good. I got the assist in the first game, but I think him and Metcalf and O'Neill will be a bit more sort of better when it comes to ball retention. And O'Neill goes in hard enough for me to think that he can be a solid player there. And then you run Volpato on the right, Iracunda on the left, and then you just play the bad boy Toure up front. And I reckon you just run with that and honestly see how you go. I think we can definitely get a result against Paraguay, but we have to be positive. I think we have to play some positive football. I know Popovic is very much adamant on, playing a low block and, getting us defensively sound. But at this point, I think positive football is what we want to see. And it gets us excited to, watch it. And I think beating Paraguay will make us have a really good statement. And then we end up going to verse either Egypt, Iran, or Belgium, or even New Zealand if they somehow miraculously beat Belgium in that round of 32 stage. And I'd much rather verse them than potentially going to verse either a France or a Spain or someone else on that level if we're not the best ranked third place team. So we still obviously have a chance finishing third to qualify, which is great. But I'm going for the draw or the win here. And that's all we need to do. We don't actually need to lose the game. So let's just not fucking lose it. How about that? But don't play to just not lose it. Play to win it. Play to win it and show the Aussie spirit. And guys, as I mentioned at the start, I've been working at Fan Zone, so be sure to check out Fan Zone. We're selling tickets there. Things about $10 now for the first release. If it's not, it's $15. You get a free drink. Come and see me. Come say hello. And we'll obviously, be able to enjoy watching the game on a big screen. Obviously, Fed Square is nice, but that goes up to capacity 2 hours before the game. You saw the US game. It was pissing down rain. Last time, it was summer when I was there. And, there was no sanctions as there were now. So Fan Zone is the place to be. We also give away these beautiful jerseys. I'm going to turn them around if I can turn around if you're looking at the video as I smack my camera. There we go. I don't know if that captured that correctly, but it's got Fan Zone World Cup 2026 at the back. You get to win one of those. And, there's other games too. So check out the Instagram page if you're a fan of Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Scotland, New Zealand. I said Argentina, I'm pretty sure. If I haven't, Argentina as well. So England too. So, get amongst it. But the World Cup continues to roll. We're obviously excited. We get this podcast out to sort of, quickly discuss about that and whatnot and, get keen for Paraguay because, that's going to be a monster game and I'm really excited. I'm rooting for the Socceroos. That was an extremely inspiring performance against Turkey. It's hard to talk about that now after coming off that loss to the USA, but we still are proud because you know what? Everyone thought that Turkey was going to get out of the group. It didn't happen. They are going to eliminate it. And, we've got one hand on potentially going to the round of 32. And as a Socceroos fan, my expectation right now is just to win a knockout game. Can we win a knockout game? Can we potentially get to the round of 16 and, try to make a deep run? I know Argentina's probably knocking for us there, but we can continue to still, surprise and just show the Australian spirit that I still think we have. We do demonstrate that Australian spirit. Remember, everyone thought we were going to finish last in our group, so we've stuck it up them as well. So, all those smug US fans, Yolanda Donovans, I don't even know who that loser is on the punditry. You can see I've got no filter when it comes to the Socceroos. They're my club, mate. Like, I would, I know I support a lot of teams, but if I saw the Socceroos win the World Cup, I think that would be just a feeling that I could never, experience ever or imagine how I'd feel if it did happen. So, every 4 years I get to root for the Socceroos and I'm proud to represent and be Australian and, see the boys on the big stage. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Huddle Within podcast. If you do enjoy episodes like this or this episode specifically, be sure to leave a comment and a 5-star review wherever you do get your podcasts. It'd be also great if you could like and subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts, so we can continue to show this out to people that see sports exactly the way that you do. But without further ado,
let's get straight back into it.
All right. In the midst of all the World Cup stuff that's been going on, obviously, which we're extremely excited to sort of talk about and also cover, I cannot skip the NBA as my Washington Wizards, as I'm wearing the beanie here, drafted AJ Dybantsa, pick number 1 out of BYU. You know, they were trying to tease whether we would get Darren Peterson or not. You know, I think Darren Peterson's camp was trying to get his stocks up. You know, he was really keen on being the number 1 pick. We went with the best player in the draft, in my opinion, and that is AJ Dybantsa. He's a forward. He's someone that's going to fit really nicely with Trae Young, who, you know, he signed a crazy deal. You know, 4 years, $203 million deal with a player option. Quite crazy, I have to admit. But, you know, that could end up being elite. Who knows? We'll see. But then pairing up together, along with the likes of AD and Alex Sars, obviously got a broken foot, Keyshawn George, Bob Carrington, Willie J. Ball, Bilal Coulibaly, Trey Johnson. We're going to be a force. And I think we finally got the last piece of the puzzle. And now it's just, you know, putting the pieces together and figuring out how this Washington Wizards team can be a championship contender in the next 3 to 4 years. And, you know, that's the main thing when we have this Trae Young contract is, can we figure it out in those 3-4 years? And, you know, as I mentioned, the contract is very expensive, but we have to remember that these young guards and players are still all on their rookie deals. So you have 2-3 years of potentially Trae Young stuff to, you know, figure this team out and figure the salaries and figure out what money you're going to give to everyone. And by then, you know, you either win a championship or you have a young core that's been developed and mentored by the likes of Trae Young and Anthony Davis. So that's extremely exciting. But we'll get towards AJ Dybantsa, who, you know, has the swagger, has the confidence, and I'm extremely excited to see him wearing a Wizards uniform and, you know, being a Wizard as well in a draft class that everyone says is the most stacked since the LeBron year. And the number 1 pick that year was LeBron James. I'm not saying AJ Dybantsa is going to be LeBron James, but there is a very, very high ceiling for him. And in my opinion, if he's right, he's a lock-in All-NBA player. Like, he's got all the attributes to be unbelievable. So that is something extremely exciting. And, you know, when the Wizards won the lottery, I was cheering, I was elated, I was over the moon. So to see, obviously, the pick now become AJ Dybantsa, who is someone that you can ask all my mates from maybe the end of the season in March and Feb, I was sending out the AJ Dybantsa rapping to the, you know, On One Tonight by Lil Baby, Rainbow Face. I'm calling him Rainbow Face now. That's going to be the Washington Wizards anthem, and, you know, seeing AJ Dybantsa rap lyric by lyric on it. And now that he's part of the Wizards, you know, it was a meme that all the tanking teams were using on their Twitter. We're the ones that end up getting him. So it's just extremely exciting. And, you know, I really like his attitude. As I mentioned, his swagger, his confidence. You know, he was a player correspondent at the NBA Finals, you know, being a part of the sort of coverage of media for players. It was really cool to see. So he looks like he is someone that definitely belongs in the league. He gives me Ant Edward vibes in terms of his sort of attitude and confidence. And I really like that. So I'm extremely excited to see how AJ Dybantsa goes in a Wizards uniform, and I'm wishing him all the best. And I really hope he can, you know, get this franchise to where I hope it can become, and that is winning an NBA championship or at least going for the playoffs next year. In terms of other picks, Darren Peterson goes to. There was some rumors that, you know, he didn't want to go there. He wanted to go to the Wizards or the Grizzlies. I feel like that's some bullshit. He ends up going to Utah, and, you know, he's a perfect fit there. He's someone that, you know, has really, really good talent and, you know, is probably the best 3-point shooter and pure scorer in the draft. The only problem with Darren Peterson is obviously his health, and I guess his attitude's a bit strange, you know, but that's not something that you can really judge. I know he's his own character, his own personality. But I think the one thing that was alarming was the fact that, you know, he was ruled out of a game 15 minutes before he told the coach he's not playing. So those are some sort of things that are questionable, and, you know, the creatine problem he had as well. Put him at 2. If he was a bit more healthier and he had a track record of sort of good health, you might have seen him potentially be the number 1 pick. But I think in terms of fit for Utah, it's perfect. And it's also having Wizards get AJ Dybantsa is also a perfect pick as well. Cam Boozer goes to Memphis. He's someone that I think is you know what you're going to get from this guy, and you're guaranteed to get stability. A player that's going to get you 20 and 10 plus, someone that's a proven winner, someone that obviously has NBA lineage with his father, obviously being an NBA player as well. And I think the Memphis Grizzlies also landed on the correct pick here. Not really looking at the crazy, crazy upside, but getting someone that is for sure going to give you stability and a solid run in the league. And I think the fact that they've had so many injuries and John Moran being sort of very controversial there, this is probably something that is much needed to sort of stabilize them. So Cam Boozer obviously goes at 3 and Caleb Wilson goes at 4. Chicago really need a star, so this makes a lot of sense. And, Caleb Wilson looks to be potentially, as a lot of people are saying, could be the best player out of the 4 and in the whole draft. He was an unbelievable dunker. He's got length and, he's someone that I think the Bulls really need, someone that's going to, put butts on seats and, sell tickets as well. So the top 4, there wasn't really any arguments. And then you had the 4 guards that sort of, you didn't know where they were going to go. You were thinking Akoff would have went at 5 and maybe then Keaton Wagler. But Keaton Wagler ends up going 5th and the Clippers get him. Michael Brown Jr. jumps Akoff and Kingston Flemings, which was a bit of a surprise, but I think the Nets go with someone that's a bit less off ball, given that they drafted a shit ton of guards last year. And then that left Sacramento Kings getting Akoff right on their hands, and I don't think they screwed up this pick for once. I think they did something that was just normal. They got the best available player. They got someone that they can potentially build a franchise around. I think out of the 4 ones, Akoff, I think, has the best upside in being the best player here. Keaton Wagler is very talented, but I think Akoff is someone that can potentially be the best player out of the 4. And that leaves, obviously, Kingston Flemings. I had a bet on for him going 7th, and I kind of regret it now. I thought Mikal Brown would have gone to 7, but I guess I didn't know too much about him to really have that realistic sort of view. And then you had Braden Burries going 10th, Morez Johnson Jr. So the 3 Michigan guys, so go 9, 11, and 12. So, and Ade Mara, the Spanish bloke, and Yaxel Lindenberg goes to the Warriors. He sort of fits in that profile of, one of the oldest players in the draft, joining one of the oldest teams in the league. So he'll do really good stuff for there. And, Mara, they definitely need a center that can obviously back up, especially if they aren't able to sort of keep Isaiah Hardenstein, but that's someone that they can sort of build around too. And then Nate Mann, and oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this. I'm glad that I covered a bit of NBA as well today, because I was so focused on the NBA draft. I did forget to fucking mention that Nate Mann, got picked by the Heat. But we all know what happened. Giannis is in the Miami Heat. So he gets traded to Milwaukee. That pick, along with 2 other picks and a couple of swaps and also a second rounder there with Kalal Ware, with Tyler Hero, with Jaime Jaquez. A very big haul. Heat lose all their players, but I feel like they had to do this trade. They had to get a star in. So I think they're just going to figure it out maybe this season, if not next season, like how they sort of piece Giannis and Bam together. But, Giannis getting out of Milwaukee, I know we've been waiting for a long time, so it's not a surprise. But it's going to be really cool to see, him in a big market, in a team like Miami Heat, who, has that sort of reputation of being a big franchise full of big stars as well. So, they're going to be a defensively strong team with Bam, with Giannis, with off night as well. That's Davion Mitchell. And if they're able to keep Norman Powell, they'll also be good too. And then the Bucks, they're just trying to figure out what they can get. So getting Braden Burries, who was the best player available in that moment, and then trying to get someone that has potential upside in Nate Mann, 4th ranked player at high school, is, I think the right call here. So I can't really judge the moves that they've made. I can only, wait and see what Milwaukee can do with the pieces they have, whether they trade Tyler Hero to a competing team, whether he's just the hometown hero, keeps them and ends up being an all-NBA player once again, if he's healthy, is something we're going to have to wait and see. But, the trade is like, it's not a shocking trade. It's like, it's a trade that's cool. Like, it's good to look at. But in terms of just like moving the needle for Miami Heat, no one's really convinced about that. And also for Milwaukee Bucks, I think they're just taking as many pieces as possible. Celtics offered 2 first rounders and Jaylen Brown. I don't think that's enough. I know Jaylen Brown is an all-star, but I don't think Milwaukee really need a type of player like that at the moment. They really need to see what they can do and sort of just rebuild as well. So getting the 2 picks in this draft, getting some young players, Kelly Ware could potentially be something, Jaime Jaquez can be something. Is probably the right way to go for them, instead of getting someone like Jaylen Brown end up potentially getting in whoever Boston drafted, which was a 27th pick. And, Boston are not always going to be like down there when it comes to picks. It was a smart move there. But in terms of the other players in the draft, we've obviously finished the first round. Kareem Lopez, first Mexican to be drafted in the first round. That's a really big achievement for them. And to be honest, as I look at the draft board, I don't really know too much about everyone else. Cole Pete, I know a bit about. He falls down to 30, which, is pretty decent. And, we get a lot of trades and movements between the picks as well, where OKC pick up a 17th pick, trading 2 second rounders. I don't know how Memphis let that happen. But, OKC in drafting is just like peanut butter and jelly for Americans. So, incredible stuff from them as they continue to just, retool and try to stop Wemby next season and go for another title. But yeah, guys, honestly, that's been this week's episode of the Huddle Within podcast. Again, I obviously plan for some other episodes to get some people in, but given that this week was a hectic sport week in terms of NBA and the FIFA World Cup, I had to get on here and put an episode there. So I wouldn't really say it's a breaking news episode. I just would say more of breaking down the World Cup on the next groups and what happened so far. And also, reacting to the NBA draft. Obviously, the Wizards drafting AJ Dybantsa, which is massive. And then Giannis, who it took me, I think, a good 17, 18 minutes to realize that, he did get traded amidst everything else. And you can tell by my sort of lack of sleep preparation and all that, I missed that, which is a big apologies. But I guess I didn't because you guys were able to get to that point and, get my reaction. So once again, subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts. It'd mean the world to me. Check out my Instagram. We're still doing the Zuru Ballers. Again, I've been slack with it because I'm also working at Fan Zone. I'm also doing a full-time job. I'm also training 3 nights. I'm playing outdoor 3 nights a week, outdoor football. So bear with me as I try to get my bearings. But now I'm going to honestly get some sleep. Up bright and early tomorrow for Brazil taking on Scotland at 7 a.m. So I will be at Fan Zone. So maybe you guys won't be able to see this by getting the tickets then, but I'll be there, obviously, doing the events and covering that up. So once again, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys hopefully soon. Cheers. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Huddle Within podcast. I appreciate you for tuning in and being part of this community where we go beyond the game and into what really matters. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who sees sports just the way that we do. And hey, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on my social medias, which will be linked below. Send in your thoughts and even be part of a future episode. Until next time, keep that passion alive, stay in the huddle, and remember, it's always deeper than the game. Cheers.